Hello boys and girls, welcome to my channel. I'm for Classic and welcome to BenchART. So for today what I do have in it is another test to the RX 6700 XT, and today what I do have in it is the demo version of Hell of Us. So this demo, I mean, it kind of was released like today by the time of this video, and the release date of the game it will be in like 3 months, but I decided to cover the demo because there is a lot going on with this title recently. First of all, it was mostly because of the system requirements that the developer team published. They published that all the system requirements, I mean all the settings or the recommendations that they had as upscaled included. They don't really specify which upscaling or how much upscaling they were using, but for example, what really was kind of a news for the outlets, it was mostly seeing that an RTX 4090, which is an extremely expensive and extremely enthusiastic graphic card, um, was not able to get 60 frames per second on this game, even using upscaling. So there was kind of a raw in there that said a column. I mean, that said ultra settings 4K 30 frames per second. You need an RTX 4090, and that is with upscaling. Of course, people lost their heads seeing that, and they saw that the game it is using Unreal Engine 5, so they kind of added 1+1, and they ended up saying that, oh my god, this game it is very poorly optimized and everything. And so I decided to take Hell of Us to a spin, just to try to understand how bad optimized it was. I was expecting all the bad things about Unreal Engine 5, like stuttering, traversal stuttering, shader compilation stuttering, very big drops in frame rate. I was expecting maybe to play with the low settings or even median settings with very low values of upscaling, and look at this. To my surprise, it's actually the opposite. This game it is not that demanding to start with. Shader compilation issues or stutters, it's pretty much non-existent, and it does pre-compile shaders very quickly at the beginning of the game, which is pretty cool. And there is just a little bit of traversal stuttering here and there, but let me just say that it's something really small. Okay, it's no big deal. So the only issue I have with the performance, it was pretty much on this cutscene. I haven't played too much of it. I just decided to take the game for a spin, like a quick look, and it was on this cutscene that I had issues with the performance, with the game dropping below than 60 frames per second, where it seems that the GPU is not really at fault in here, but it is the CPU during this cutscene that can't really handle those 60 frames per second, which means that if you have the RX 6700 XT and you have a better CPU, and possibly instead of having PCI Express 3 like I do, if you have PCI Express 4, probably you can sustain 60 frames per second with these specific settings, but still cutscenes are not playable moments. But I also, obviously, I always try to have 60 frames per second in them, unless there is a toggle where I can choose to lock the game on the cutscenes to 30, which is something that usually happens with the games. But on this case, I haven't found any option, or didn't export that much, to check if there was an option to lock the cutscenes to 30, since it's a little bit sometimes all over the place. Not entirely, as you can see, it's mostly above 60, but there are some moments where it does drop below the 60. But as you can see, 1080p, high settings, textures on max, since the game doesn't use too much VRAM, and using 70% of TSR, which is essentially upscaling something above than 720p. I think it's actually upscaling. Yeah, it's around 756p to 1080p. It looks decent, alright. TSR, in my opinion, is far superior to FSR 3, and it's actually worse than the LSS, but still, I think it does work pretty well on Unreal Engine 5, and of course this is the official upscaling solution that Unreal has, so yeah, it needs to work good. And yeah, here we go. That's the moments where we are dropping. I'm not sure if it is GPU, but I'm assuming that it is also CPU too, because I also tried with the lower settings and the game did drop none of the less. Alright, so yeah, very big surprise to me regarding the performance. It's not a big deal. Apparently, what they claim about upscaling at 4K, it's 90% of TSR, so it's not really too much upscaling. It's like running the game natively, and I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of games with the 4090 that you can't get 60 frames per second at native resolution at ultra settings. So this game is no different. And by the way, just for the curiosity, this game it is using Unreal Engine 5.5.4. I think it's that. I know it's 5.5, but I don't know what subversion it is using. So I believe it is making usage. It's making use of the latest additions of Unreal Engine, which offers more optimization regarding performance. And to be honest, it's very noticeable in that sense. Like I said, the game barely stutters at all, works really well. I mean, the visuals are nothing special, but we have seen a lot of Unreal Engine 5 games lately, or throughout these years, that wasn't really anything special regarding quality, and at the end of the day, well, it was very demanding, much more than what actually we are seeing in here. So we have in here a very small split comparison in between other settings. For example, 1080p median with textures on maximum with 60% of TSR during the jungle moments offers a very good performance above than 100 frames per second, and it doesn't look very different than the ice settings, to be honest. What it does, the major difference is mostly pop-in as far as I could tell, but that you can customize yourself. 1080p high with textures on maximum provides an experience above than 60, but sometimes it does drop, so it's a good experience if you want to use a variable refresh rate screen. And as for 1080p Ultra with 90% of resolution scaling, I use 90% mostly because at 100% the game did drop below than 30, but at 90% it kind of hold up above than 30. So if you want to play at 30 frames per second in here, you can go with 1080p Ultra and adjust the TSR depending on how demanding the game will get while you go and complete the game. Because for me at the beginning 90% was fine and it stayed above than 30, but I'm pretty sure this is a big game, so there might be events or areas where it is more demanding, and you might need to drop the TSR a little bit lower to lower values like 80% or something like this. Okay. Variable refresh rate might not work very well during the cutscenes, but at least during the gameplay moments that I did play, I think it was very good. Now moving on to 1440p, and while 1080p I did recommend you to go with high settings and 70% of TSR, if you are playing at 1440p, my recommendation it is a little bit different. I do recommend you to go with median instead of high and use 60% of TSR. So in case you are wondering what is 60%, let me do some maths in here. It's about upscaling from 864p to 1440p. I think it looks decent. The only thing that I do complain mostly it's again the pop-in, but you can increase that setting if you want. There are other visible differences like shadow quality and shadow distance and volumetric lighting quality, but I don't think those are a big deal. It was really the pop-in that did distract me, so I would probably raise a little bit the VM distance or a level of details to something higher than that. So let's move on to the cutscene. So just like I told you before, the cutscene it is the most demanding moment, but again, just like I told you, even at 1080p median settings, the cutscene did drop below than 60 because I believe it's a CPU bottleneck or something. So 1440p median, it kind of it stays above than 60. Okay, fine, no issues. But again, on those more demanding moments, it does drop below than 60. But it's just some small blips there. Apart from that, the cutscene experience it is above than 60, which is pretty cool. So I will let you enjoy a little bit of the cutscene without my audio on the background.
Fuck!
So for 1440p I also tried two other settings, which essentially, well, they are the same settings. So on the left we have 1440p high settings with 70% of TSR, and at the right I'm not using any upscaling, I'm just using TSR at 100%, so I'm rendering the game natively at the native 1440p. And my recommendation is, if you are playing with a variable refresh rate screen, possibly you can go with the eye settings instead of median, while using 70% of resolution scaling in here with TSR. I'm assuming that this should be enough to provide a good experience. Although, if what you do want it is to lock the game at 30 frames per second, playing with the native 1440p, it seems to do the trick. Alright, so variable refresh rate, use upscaling 70%, native resolution, you want to play at 30 frames per second, you do use native resolution at 1440p at the eye settings. You don't have a variable refresh rate screen, or you don't want to play at 30 and you want to enjoy at 60, and you are playing at 1440p, then you go with the median settings and you do use the TSR at 60%. So that's exactly my recommendation in here, and I think it should work fine given these early moments of the game. I'm not so sure how demanding this game can get, because I don't know. I mean, we started on a forest, and the forest is usually something very demanding in the video game industry, and I think it was running fine. So that was kind of surprising. So I'm not expecting that these outside informants will be very demanding. So let's move on to 4K. And my recommendation here it is to play at median settings, textures on maximum, and 50% of TSR. So this is essentially upscaling from 1080p to 4K, and it does look very good, don't get me wrong. Again, we suffer from the same issue, which is a little bit of pop-in, and you might increase, or you might want to increase a little bit the level of details or the VM distance to high or something higher than that, whatever feels great for you. I mean, now the issue is the median settings, it is not able to provide a 60 frames per second locked, so you might have some drops here and there, but I decided to go with median because of all settings, I mean, low settings it is actually starting to notice a little bit of a little bit too much of a downgrade, you know. It's still very respectable. It's not those kind of games that get broken, but I mean, you really start to notice like almost no vegetation, no depth of field on the cutscenes. Shadows are very pixelated, for example. That's why I decided to go with median. And yeah, you might have moments like this where it does drop below than 60, but at least you retain the core visual that it is expected for you to be playing inside this game. I mean, if you are playing at 4K. Just one curiosity about the game that I was almost forgetting is that the main character of this game, it is Elias Teufaxis. I'm not really sure how it is said, but Elias Teufaxis is the voice behind Deus Ex Mankind Divided and Deus Ex Human Revolution, the Jensen, where we get that voice like, I never asked for this. I'm a big fan, and it's awesome to see him giving voice to the main character. You haven't seen too much talk during this video, but at the very beginning we have a cutscene where he does talk a lot. Now the issue that I have with that is that I played a lot of Deus Ex Human Revolution and Deus Ex Mankind Divided. So despite I do enjoy his voice in this character, the thing is I can't really place them anymore because Elias' voice is so characteristic, so bold, so hard-boiled, I don't know. That's, I mean, it seems like it does fit in the character, but I have heard so much in other characters that it feels weird. It feels like it's out of place. So if you played a lot of Deus Ex and I don't know, I think it was also on Starfield, I guess, but given that it was an NPC, probably it didn't talk as much. I don't know. I haven't played Starfield too much. So it's really hard to you know, to merge this character and Elia's voice, and I don't know, it feels weird. So as you can see, even during cutscenes, 4K median settings with 50% of TSR, it kind of holds up, but yeah, in more demanding events of the cutscene, it does drop even than 60, so yeah, that's the core experience that you can expect. So let's move on to other settings. Okay, and just to end the video, we have the two last settings that I did try it out. So the first of all, it is 4K vol settings, Textures on max with 50% TSR, and it runs something like 10 frames per second higher than the median settings, while looking much worse in my opinion. And on the right we have 4K high settings, textures on maximum, and 60% of TSR. So in case you are wondering what that really means, it's pretty much playing at 100, I mean 1300p. Alright, it's not 1440p, but it's something a little bit lower than that, and use high settings. This should provide you an experience above than 30 frames per second on both cutscenes and gameplay. And yeah, I think it's all that I want to talk about Hell of Us. Keep in mind that this was the demo. It is bound to improve in the upcoming 3 months, but I mean, the current state of the game, it is actually already very good. And given that this is an Unreal Engine title and looking to the requirements, I was really expecting the worst. But I mean, I have seen way worse than this. This is very respectable regarding performance and graphics too, and it's still 3 months away from getting released. So this is a good sign. It's a sign that the game is polished. So I think that's all, guys. Thank you a lot for watching, and I do hope to see you soon. Goodbye.